Huh. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? A UFO? Nope, just a super complicated balloon carrying one of the most sophisticated telescopes ever created. Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and so today we're going to discuss Superbit, something that I briefly discussed I think a couple of years ago with the video in the description, but something that we absolutely have to talk about again because the mission has officially started, and it's already been able to capture an array of absolutely incredible pictures. So, in other words, we're going to be talking about a mission that most people are probably not aware of, but a mission that might, in theory, transform how we do astronomy right here on planet Earth. And so let's talk a little bit more about this, but I guess first, let's answer the obvious question. Why is this maybe the first time you hear about this, even though it actually started over a month ago? Well, it's because it's a balloon. And a few months ago, most of the media was basically focused on the different type of balloon. The Chinese surveillance balloon that was flying over the US and that ended up being shot down sometime in February of 2023. And during that month, a few of these UFOs were witnessed and a few of these have actually been shot down, but not all of them were Chinese surveillance balloons. Some of them turned out to be other hobby missions that were basically trying to explore how far we can take balloon technology in order to advance astronomy or a lot of other research in regards to planet Earth. Well, I guess it's pretty funny that these were referred to as UFOs, even though most of them were identified pretty quickly. And by the way, if you were expecting the UFO video from this, there might be one coming relatively soon because NASA is going to be releasing the results conducted by independent study group sometime in June of 2023, so I guess in a few weeks from when I'm making this video. But in case you're watching this in the future, or in case you just want to have a kind of a summary, nothing extraordinary was discovered. I mean, I know this is a spoiler, but that's pretty much what I've read so far. And ironically, most of the UAP or UFO observations have actually been balloons. Just really complex ones that most people don't realize even exist. Which is probably something you expect me to say anyway, because even though I used to be in the I want to believe crowd, now I'm more in the I'm tired of looking for crowd. There really doesn't seem to be anything out there. But anyway, we'll talk more about this in some of the future videos. And so forget about UAPs and forget about Chinese balloons, let's talk about this really cool telescope. The telescope that on the ground kind of looks like this. So what exactly is Superbit? Well, as you can see, it stands for Super Pressure Balloon-Borne Imaging Telescope, and in essence is a telescope flying approximately 40 kilometers above the ground on top of one of those super powerful, super pressurized NASA balloons. And because it's so high up, it's able to ignore approximately 99.2% of Earth's atmosphere, which means that it's practically a space telescope. Except that it's not. And it's obviously way cheaper, like hundreds of times cheaper than producing something like Hubble, which then requires to be launched into space. But despite initial testing and despite all of the specifications of the telescope on board, it wasn't actually clear if this is going to perform well. After years of preparation, there was still a chance that maybe it's just not going to do a really good job. Even though the scientists originally compared this to literally Hubble telescope, it was obviously not clear if it's going to be able to take pictures that are somewhat similar in quality, especially since its mirror is much smaller. Here is the total size of this telescope. But despite its smaller mirror, it does have much better optics and should be able to produce something similar to Hubble, but with a much wider view. In other words, it's just not going to zoom in as much. And following the first pictures, such as this one right here of the Pillars of Creation, it already established that it seems to be quite capable. More importantly, very easy to maintain, somewhat cheap, and relies on a lot of modern technology that's been proven over time. And the crazy part here is that it's actually pretty heavy. It's over 1 ton or over 3,000 pounds in weight. But because of these very powerful super pressure balloons produced by NASA, not only is it able to fly that high, but it's also able to have a lot of stability, with a very heavy gondola being able to produce a lot of stability. And the overall accuracy achieved so far is less than 50 milli-arcseconds. It might not mean much to you, but it's basically as accurate as you expect from a space telescope. And since its official launch in April of 2023, NASA has now officially released several images that already look absolutely incredible, such as the super recent image released just a few days ago of the galaxy known as Messier 83. Now just to give you a comparison, this is what the Hubble image looked like, but this is obviously very zoomed in. We can actually zoom in on the Superbit image, and there is quite a lot of detail here as well. It also took an absolutely beautiful image of the famous Sombrero galaxy, once again with quite a lot of detail. You can sort of see that it's still not perfect, but these are just the first images, so they're definitely going to improve in time. Here's how this compares to the Hubble image. There's also an image from the Antenna galaxies, the two galaxies colliding with one another, with a lot of detail visible here as well. The Hubble image looks a little bit better, but it also combines data from other telescopes, including Chandra X-ray Observatory, with this image also being very processed. This image, however, is basically raw, so following processing it will definitely look better. And then we have this absolutely incredible image from the iconic Tarantula Nebula, located in the Large Magellanic Cloud. The nebula with a lot of really massive stars, and a lot of activity including most recent supernova. And what you might have noticed from these images is the actual colors produced. And that's because this telescope, just like the Hubble, is actually able to see near-infrared and also ultraviolet light as well, making this a kind of a baby Hubble. But that's of course just the beginning, and even in the first few years the Hubble telescope was not producing good imagery either. Here are actually some of the first images taken by Hubble, with the one on the left being the result of a really silly mistake that caused a lot of embarrassment for NASA back when the telescope just launched, and the one on the right being the image taken after the repairs. And as you can see even here, this is not a very spectacular image just yet. It took decades and decades of upgrades and new optics to finally start producing images we're used to and showing us the universe in a way we've never seen it before. Which obviously means we can do the same to Superbit, except that there's one major difference. There is no longer an easy way to get to Hubble and to upgrade it or to even repair it if something goes wrong. But this thing just has to land somewhere. And because every mission here is going to last approximately 100 days, it's quite likely that every 100 days we're going to start seeing more and more upgrades. But more excitingly, because this is now officially a NASA mission, you can literally track this by going to the website that you can find in the description below. And as you can see from the location here, it's been basically moving around Antarctica since April 16 of 2023. It was launched in New Zealand and is going to be retrieved in New Zealand in the next few months. But one question that I kind of kept asking myself is, why is it that this is the first time someone tried to achieve this? Or why did it take so long to produce this telescope and to make it work so well? With the answer being the balloon technology. It's actually only recently that NASA finally was able to test what's known as a superpressure balloon, or also known as ultra-long duration balloons, that are able to maintain same altitude by controlling the pressure inside. This is in comparison to zero pressure balloons, which normally maintain altitude by dropping ballast. And because of these balloons, we can now maintain missions for as long as several months. And because of the way that it's positioned, and because it's so high up in the air, it's essentially able to function both during the day and during nighttime. In other words, this is a perfect alternative to a typical space telescope. And because this is now its official first scientific mission, it's probably important to briefly cover what the mission is. So what exactly is it doing here by flying around Antarctica? Well, it's technically looking for the distribution of dark matter in various galactic clusters. And the main way it's going to be doing this is by looking at various very weak gravitational lenses produced by a lot of galactic clusters. Here's one from the Hubble telescope from a few years back. And so basically, it's going to be looking for dark matter by taking very detailed images in order to try to find gravitational lensing. There's actually a very recent study that explored this idea using gravitational lenses already, and you can find a little bit more about it in the description below. But it also has a secondary mission related to the images we've been seeing. It's trying to characterize various types of stars in different galaxies, specifically the ones similar to the Milky Way. And because it's able to take these wide shots, and it's also able to see both optical light and the ultraviolet light, it's essentially a perfect telescope to do so without using Hubble. So far this might sound like a perfect solution for a lot of different astronomers out there that cannot afford to have a space telescope, but still want to do advanced science, with maybe only one shortcoming so far. I mean, it's a balloon, and so its pathway depends on the winds and a lot of other weather conditions. So basically it might be a little bit more difficult to control, but it's still controllable and it still does really good science. Which of course means that we're definitely going to be coming back and talking more about various discoveries from this particular telescope in the next few months. I'm actually super excited that the mission finally started, mostly because this definitely opens a lot of new doors for a lot of different astronomical communities out there. Anyway, at least for now, check out all of the links in the description below, and once we have more news or more discoveries, I'll make sure to follow this up with the next video. Thank you for watching, subscribe, share this with someone who loves learning about space and sciences, come back tomorrow to learn something else, and maybe support this channel on Patreon by joining channel membership or by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt you can find in the description. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye-bye. Okay, this is really surprising to me, but apparently it was being tested and launched from University of Toronto around 2012. I was there in 2012. I didn't see any balloons. I think there's a conspiracy going on. Oh wait, no, I just wasn't really into balloons back then. But technically, if I had looked up, I would probably see something like this.